So when we think of technology, there are three pieces that's important to call out. One of them is technology in store for the retailing general experience, so technology that faces the consumer. The second big piece of technology is the backend, and it's all the robotics and all the technology that's in the background of that doesn't really face the consumer. And it's extremely important as a differentiator, not so much for the offering for the consumer, but actually in cost. In the long term, technology in the back end actually can allow you to have a price differentiation and pass that on to the consumer. And in the end, that allows you to gain market share. And briefly, is the data analytics. So all these intangibles of data collection, that is not only how you collect data, but also if you have the power and the know-how how to process it and then to derive recommendations on the back of that. The second big pillar is disruption. And disruption is a term that cuts across everything. But I would think of it as three big things. One of them is omni-channel. It's here to stay. Omni-channel, you can think of it as e-commerce for those brick and mortar or physical stores that didn't have an e-commerce proposition before. But you can also think of it as the role of technology and digital across the journey of the consumer. So going from research and discovery of a product, going to the research and identifying if that product fulfills my needs, going to the purchase, and then the post-purchase experience. The second one is disruption of the physical stores roles. We're seeing this everywhere in the world, especially in developed markets where we have smaller formats, smaller stores, more targeted to the needs of the consumer today, of this fast-paced environment where we are all very busy and we need solutions right now. The second piece is this showroom experience. The stores have stopped to being just a medium to deliver goods, but it's also an experience that should be fulfilling and should fit into one's life. So you see that a lot in malls and department stores. Finally, the role in e-commerce. I'm going to go back to this throughout our day-to-day. Stores, the most important or the most expensive part of the value chain when we think about e-commerce is the last mile delivery, right? How do I get that package to my consumer? That piece can be extremely expensive, and that requires critical mass that's very hard to achieve. Physical stores, since it's an installed base that's already there, in many cases fully amortized, can allow you to do that last mile delivery at minimal cost or marginal cost. You basically have your installed base, and you can just bring the consumer, have the consumer there, and they can pick up the good, and also at the same time you can offer them additional services or additional goods. I want to go now to your question, and the question was about consumer. How does this whole thing impact our consumer? It impacts us in many ways. If we think of all of us as consumers, there are many pieces that we're going to see reflected in us. First of all, we want a personalized experience. We do not appreciate anymore a blanket mailing list offering us something that doesn't fulfill our needs. So for that personalized experience, we also, especially millennials and Generation Z, are able to see the trade-offs of privacy versus the service I'm getting in exchange. This was not the case in prior generations. Baby boomers, Generation X, and so on, we're much more worried about how much information we share. And that brings me to another point. Social media has become a much more important piece for us as consumers to actually derive our recommendations. Back in the day, it used to be reports, experts, going to the store and talking to actually the store manager. We don't trust those interactions anymore, but we trust much more what you recommend me as a friend, and you tell me this actually works for me. That's tremendously valuable. Immediate access is extremely important. Wherever and whenever, we want immediacy. It's long gone the days when we could actually wait for our parcels to be delivered over the course of a few weeks.
We have an expert in technology, Carlos, and we have an expert in marketing and consumer behavior like Felipe. So I will put my accent in the retail. It's impossible to project the consumer technology evolution without the retailer technological evolution. Okay, in the future, it is a technological common platform. It's like somebody invites you to a soccer tournament and you take your best grass soccer shoes and then you arrive and finally find out late that it's a FIFA tournament online, plenty of millennials making fun of you. I mean, the game is different, the field is different. It's not a matter of a consumer, of the retailer, it's a common technological field where everybody or everything will happen. A good example of this is, I don't know if everybody's familiar with Amazon Alexa, is a data and consumption experience in just one contact. I mean, if the weather is cold, Alexa will give you offers and promote products for cold weather, and then with a one voice command, you can close the deal. Don't even touch your cell phone. In food, the picture is totally different. Just the 8% of the buyers buy usually, and 50% buy sometimes, but 42% of the food buyers do not buy online. The battlefield for every consumer will be based in the technology evolution. The all 4P that we learn in the university about the price, product, place, and promotion changed totally to what we call the new 4P, that is personalization, peer-to-peer community, participation, and predictive demand modeling.
Are already happening in some places. Some trends are about to happen in some other places, and also, as we said before, some of the behaviors we're seeing now might be here to stay or might actually go away with post-pandemic. So, in terms of purchasing behavior, I find it useful to think about it as, again, two big buckets. One of them is research online. The other one is purchase online. So. Again, from the consumer standpoint, you could do one of those two things whenever relating to a product. All that points us to a big spike in grocery shopping. So most of us all over the world are trying to get our groceries online and not have to go to the supermarket. If you think of purchasing online across different sectors, you would see that groceries was actually not a sector that had deep penetration of e-commerce, and it has to do with many reasons. It is structurally different. It's structurally difficult to actually offer many selections online. It's actually not the ideal experience for a consumer to actually browse through aisles and aisles of produce. Well, we all got suddenly all comfortable with the grocery shopping, and that grocery shopping has spiked during the pandemic. That trend is probably here to stay. That trend is probably something that will survive the pandemic, just because we are realizing that it's actually much more enjoyable to buy from home than actually go to a crowded supermarket. When you look at those dimensions where people are buying less online or are spending less in total, you see that the biggest drop is in the younger generations, to Generation Z, Generation X, and Millennials. This base that we achieved is going to stay. Also, I think this pandemic helped a lot of older generations actually get much more comfortable with buying online or buying through an app, and that's here to stay.
This really changed the game about what they are having as a trend in terms of the consumption. Obviously, there was a sequence that coming from initially the health protection and security protection, then to food and groceries, then the life into quarantine, then trying to recover the normal life, and that is a step-by-step the way that a usual consumer go through this retail purchasing experience in the last 2 or 3 months.